Hi, I'm Judith Cassel-Mamet, and like many of you, I've been absolutely devastated, completely gutted by the inhumane and cruel actions of ICE all over our country. In my hometown of Denver, Colorado, we're facing the same bizarre behavior. I delighted in hearing about the Red Hat movement, and I know that there are knitters working fervently to knit up these little hats that are based on a Norwegian folktale. I've linked below to the YouTube video where I learned about these red hats. You can also learn about it on Instagram. So I went out and I bought yarn and I bought the patterns off Ravelry, and I was all set to go, and I realized I'm not a very good knitter, and it's going to take me way beyond this administration to actually make one of those resistance hats. So I've come up with a pattern for using red fleece to make a hat in about an hour, maybe less. And it's easy to find tassels in craft stores or online. And I've included a link to my resistance pin that a friend of mine is making. So I hope you enjoy this. I invite you to put some love and kindness into the effort. Make your hat, and let's stand together strong. Here are the materials I'll be working with to demonstrate how to make a quick red resistance cap if you prefer to sew up something that'll take about an hour, maybe less, as opposed to knitting or crocheting. First of all, you'll need some red fleece. You'll be working with two pieces that are 12 by 14, with the stretchy side of the material being the 12-inch measurement. When I bought mine, it was about 30-inch yards, 30-inch wide, so a half yard would give me two hats. Having a tassel is real fun. You can find these at craft stores. This is called a bell tassel. I did find it on Amazon and ordered a lot for very little. Sewing accessories, you'll need a machine, or you can use a needle and red thread. You need pins, you need scissors or a rotary cutter, a ruler or a cutting mat, a tape measure, and Sharpie or chalk to mark just a couple of areas that you'll need to mark off. Then I encourage you to zhuzh it up. Yep, that's a word in the dictionary now. And some things you might gather that would be fun to work with could be buttons, ribbon, pins, trim, some kind of embroidery around, or even a patch that you make or that you purchase. When you purchase your fleece, determine which is the direction of the biggest stretch. So on this piece, I can pull it easily, and it's very stretchy going this way. Look how different it is when I yank it going this way. So determine which direction the stretchy sits and cut your two pieces so that the 12-inch side is the stretchy side. So here I have two pieces that have been cut. I know that the stretchy goes horizontally, and this piece is 12 inches by 14 inches. Then I'm going to just pin the bottom 7 inches. I've just used 3 pins, that's all I need. Next, I need to mark where the 6-inch or the middle of the top of the two pieces are. You can either use a Sharpie, or if you have a tailor chalk, that's fine. A Sharpie works great. There's my middle. I want to have an indication of about 1/2 inch on either side, because I want to leave that open as I sew my two sides of the hat. I need to leave a small section open for the tassel. This is the template I suggest using that I have provided, or you can freehand it. I'm going to set the template down at the top, it says top, and I'm going to use my Sharpie to mark the shape. But again, you can freehand this, because all you're doing is basically creating an arch that's coming up to the top. So you can freehand it or use the template. Now put a pin or two to hold the two pieces together, and you're going to trim away that shape. here I have the hat shape created. I'm going to sew up one side all the way to that top mark, and then I sew the second side all the way up to the top mark. Your seam allowance, there's a lot of forgiveness, because if your seam allowance is a little big, this will stretch nicely to fit over the head. If your seam allowance is a little short, like a 1/2 inch, I'll go for a 5/8 or even an inch seam allowance. If you just do a 1/2 inch, that's fine. After it's sewn, we're going to turn in the bottom 3 inches. So that's going to add a little bit more snug fit to the hat. I've sewn both sides. Keep in mind that it's important to do a back stitch at either end so that when you have that seam laying open, that this is stays nice and tight. I'll take the pins out and get ready for the next round of sewing. Now, before going any farther, you can, at this point, insert the tassel going through that hole on the right side, and here you see it sticking out in this little opening I created. And I can take this to the sewing machine and sew that seam closed. So I can just sew that seam closed, or I can hand sew it at the end. Your choice. Now for the final few steps. I've sewn the tassel into that little space there using my sewing machine, and now I'm going to eyeball it. I want to turn up the bottom, and the reason I did this is so I don't have to worry about this seam here or that cut being really clean. So I don't have to worry about that. I'm going to turn this in, and you can eyeball it. You can turn in whatever you feel like. The less you turn in, the more the hat's going to droop over. The more you turn in, whatever. Just eyeball it and see what you like. Usually I do somewhere between 2 and 3 inches. And I'm going to pin that turn in. And when you get to the seam, like right here, open it up so that when you turn it in, you're going to sew the seam flat open. So I hope you can see the seam allowance there. I've opened up so that when I pin it, I've got that lined up, and I will be able to sew through all those layers of fabric with the seam open. So I'm going to pin around to make sure that that's about right, the right amount that I'm turning in. And I'll show you after I've pinned it. So here you can see I have used my machine. I set it to the zigzag stitch, but I made my stitches very long as they could be. And it resulted in this nice sort of wavy line. I stitched around the entire inside. I'll take the pins out, and there you have the hat. Now, I really invite you to be as creative as you want and do whatever you feel like down here. This could be hand sewn with embroidery thread. You could put a trim here. You could just do a straight stitch. If you're a professional, if you have a great sewing machine that has all kinds of decorative stitches, try different decorative stitches. It's all good. And I just encourage you to just put some love into this resistance cap. Now that you've made a super simple and warm resistance hat, you can leave it as is and wear it to whatever protest you want. I like to zhuzh mine up with my favorite pin made by Rita Valley, a wonderful ceramic artist and friend. It's on a white dove and the words resist on it. I'll link to her website down below. But you might want to personalize it by adding a button, or you might have a patch laying around the house, anything that's going to add a little joy and kindness and creativity into these dark days. And you've got a red background. Go to town. Finally, this is the template that I worked with, but again, you can hand draw it. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 inches across this way, and that's going to come to about the 6-inch mark of your hat, which is the middle. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus a little coming down the side. So if you don't have the template, you can just mark off 6 inches, 6.5 inches from your top, right hand side, and about 5.5 inches going across the top on the right, and then just draw an arc going down. You simply flip this over on the other side of your hat and do the same thing. Well, I hope those directions were easy to follow. I wish you well on your journey of making the hat. I'd love to see your work.